I once did this trip in a Polo Vivo, driving more than 800 kilometers from a full tank without refueling. If you have not seen the video, I'll put the link in the descriptions. The trip is from Polokwane to Pietermaritzburg. This time around, I'll be doing the trip with a bit of a difference. I'll be using a different car, and on the return trip, I'll be hauling a bit of furniture. Again, on this trip, I'll be testing out the fuel range. How many kilometers can one get from a full tank? If you've subscribed or followed the channel, you would have seen a few uploaded shots of this car. So long story short, I sold the Polo Vivo and I now drive a Ford Ranger XLT. This is the car I'll be driving for this trip. I will do a separate video explaining the process I went through selling the Polo Vivo. Anyway, back to this car. This is the model year 2024 Ford Ranger XLT single turbo. It produces 125 kilowatts of power and 405 Newton meters of torque, paired to a 6-speed automatic gearbox. I'll also be doing a full review of this car, so comment down below if there's anything that you'd like to know about the car. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Ford claims that this car consumes about 7.4 liters per 100 kilometers. So on this trip, I'll be putting that to the test. I filled up the tank and the range was already showing me 1047 kilometers. The trip is about 800 kilometers, so with such a range I can easily cover it. But this is a heavy car and it tends to consume a lot of fuel when you're going uphill. Just like in the Polo Vivo trip, I'll strictly be keeping up to the speed limit of 120 kilometers per hour, and I'll be alone in the car. So those are the factors to consider again for this trip. I zeroed out everything strictly for this trip. So the consumption is at 0, the kilometers are on 0, and the average speed is on 0. So from here on, everything that's counting will strictly be for this trip. So unlike the trip with the Polo, this trip will be done over 2 days. The first day we'll travel from Polokwane to Centurion, and then the following day from Centurion all the way to Pietermaritzburg. So the trip begins at around 3 in the afternoon for about 267 kilometers. It's a bright and sunny day, no one on the road, so it's easy to keep to the speed limit. I'll be updating the stats every 50 kilometers or by the hour, and also to check the kilometers traveled versus the range that's left in the tank, in order to see how many kilometers can one achieve from one tank in a Ford Ranger XLT 2-liter single turbo. I am not trying to milk every kilometer out of the tank. This is simply to test out how much range can one get when keeping to the speed limit and driving normal. I know Isuzu achieved a range of about 1,400 kilometers in their 1.9 liter engines. However, for that trip, they were using manual Bakkies and vigorously aiming to achieve that. So here I'm simply just driving normal and keeping to the speed limit to see how much I can achieve with a full tank. "30 kilometers into the trip and the consumption is not looking good. 8.1 liters per 100 kilometers and a range of about 8,000 kilometers. So technically here it would mean that the car can go for about 1,030 kilometers. Just a bit of a review on the car. The car in between the lines that you see on the cluster, between the two white lines, indicates your lane keeping assist. So they stay white if you keep to your lane, and then when you veer off, it will turn red on the side which you're going off the road. The steering wheel vibrates a bit to tell you that you must get back on the road. 50 kilometers later, the fuel consumption has improved. We're at about 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers, and the range is still sitting at about 1,000. This gives us a range of 1,052 there. Two hours left on the trip, 217 kilometers to go, and the range is still sitting at about 1,000, and we've done about 60 kilometers. So add that together, you'll get a range of about 1,070. And the car is now doing below the claimed fuel consumption. It's at 7.1 liters per 100 kilometers. Right on the hour mark, the range was still at 1,026, and we're done 100 kilometers. The consumption still at 7.2. This would give us a range of about 1,100 126. Hundred and 22 kilometers later, and all the bars are still full. Nothing has dropped. Close to 150 kilometers. The range is about 1017, and the consumption is still at 7.2. This would give us a range of about 1150 from a full tank. And I was now passing the second toll gate. This car is also featured with a blind spot monitoring assist. This feature, I used to think it's useless until I had a car that has one. And now I think every car should have one. We are so quick to dismiss features of a car until we experience them. On the 2-hour mark, having done 220 kilometers and the range sitting at about 930, we are still at 1150 kilometers of range from a full tank. Heading into Gauteng, there was a bit of traffic, so I had to focus more on the driving. I could not get the shots of the 2 remaining toll gates heading into Gauteng. On smooth roads like this car does not feel like a Bakkie. You would think you are driving an SUV. It is so comfortable. That jiggly effect feel that you feel on a Bakkie, it's non-existent on smooth roads like this. As mentioned, this is a 2-day trip. So 274 kilometers later, I'm in Centurion. This will be the stopover for the night. Then the trip will continue tomorrow, the next morning. Although it may not look like it, but this is the following day in the morning. ...275 kilometers. That's where I stopped last night after driving 2 hours and 45 minutes. The consumption remained at 7.2 liters per 100 kilometers, and the range is sitting at 864 kilometers to go. Today's journey is about 511 kilometers and should take about 5 hours to get there, and I'll be leaving at about 6 a.m. in the morning. After giving the car a warm-up, I'm back on the road. As you can see, it's drizzling a bit. These are perfect conditions for a long drive. Another awesome feature that the car has, it's the automatic rain sensing wipers. Although sometimes when it's drizzling slightly, they come in a bit late, but it's an awesome feature nonetheless. 3 hours into the drive and 325 kilometers later, the fuel consumption was not as good, and the full tank range was about 1,100. Approaching the 4th hour mark and 376 kilometers, I arrived at the 5th toll gate with about 400 kilometers left to go. About 4 hours into the trip, the fuel consumption improved because the road had cleared. So avoiding traffic and planning your trip well is very important for your fuel consumption, because you'll be avoiding overtaking on the road, and that is a great benefit for fuel consumption. Another awesome safety feature that is fitted in this car, it's the pre-collision warning and the emergency stop assist. So if you're about to run into a car or an object, the cluster will flash at you and the car will make a sound. And if you don't stop, it will activate emergency braking and stop on your behalf. At about 500 kilometers into the drive, with about 600 left in the tank, that gives us a full tank range of about 1,100, which is still not bad, but we'll see where the range will end up after the total 800 kilometers. When this car was first launched, people were overcritical about the infotainment screen, saying that it's too large, it's distracting. Honestly, this thing of people reviewing cars for a day or even a week and then come up to make ownership-like statements like that is really unfortunate, because I've been using this car now for over 6 months and I have no problem with the screen. I've gotten used to it. Everything comes off as second nature to me now. After 6 hours into the drive and 630 kilometers later, the fuel consumption improved greatly to 7.1 liters per 100 kilometers, giving a total full tank range of about 1,170. After taking the exit off ramp from the N3, I am now driving into Pietermaritzburg. The time is 10 minutes to 11. I left Centurion at 6 in the morning, making the trip 5 hours. And here I've arrived at my destination. So let's go over the stats. After driving 783 kilometers, that's almost 8 hours, and having a range of 354 left in the tank, that gives us a full tank range of about 1,137. That's not bad for a 2-ton vehicle with an automatic gearbox. However, to be fair, I will say this car can give you around 1,100 in terms of range. Stay tuned for the second leg of the trip, as I'll be hauling some furniture from Pietermaritzburg all the way to Polokwane. Thank you for watching.